Imagine being dropped into the middle of nowhere with no phone, no GPS, and no idea what country you're standing in. Your mission is to guard a canyon. Nobody tells you what you're guarding it from. Nobody tells you why. You're just told to stay there for 1 year, completely alone. Now imagine that halfway through that year, you fall into the canyon, and at the bottom you discover that the things living there were once human. My name is Levi Kane, and that's exactly what happened to me. They recruited me because I was good, or at least that's what I told myself when I sat across from a man with no name and the quiet confidence of someone who never needed one. But there were plenty of good soldiers they could have chosen. What made me special wasn't my skill. It was the fact that I had nothing. No girlfriend, no family waiting for a call, no real attachments. When the man asked me if anyone in the world would miss me if I disappeared, I had to think about it. And in that moment, I understood exactly why I was sitting there. They handed me a map with no country names, flew me to the edge of a no-fly zone, and told me to walk 38 kilometers north. I never asked where I was. There didn't seem to be a point. My destination was West Tower, a remote outpost overlooking a massive gorge. It had solar power, a rain collection system, a small garden, and even a vodka still left behind by the previous guard. My job was simple. Every day I walked the western rim, checked the automatic gun turrets, maintained the perimeter fences, and serviced devices called cloakers that hid the gorge from satellites by broadcasting false signals. There was no internet, no phone, and no outside contact except for a radio check once a month. Across the gorge sat East Tower, same structure, same mission. Every day I could see someone moving around inside, carrying out the same routine on the opposite side. Our orders were clear: no contact, not with them, not with anyone. I followed those orders for about 6 weeks. Then loneliness started doing what loneliness always does. It slowly dismantled my discipline. One day I looked across the canyon and realized that whoever was over there was probably just as alone as I was. So I waved, a ridiculous thing for a trained operative to do, but I did it anyway. She waved back. From that day on, neither of us was alone anymore. We communicated through gestures, drawings, and notes sent across a line stretched between the towers. Her handwriting was perfect. Mine looked terrible, and she made sure I knew it. I spent months trying to make her laugh. Eventually, I made an even bigger mistake. I built a zip line between the towers. One night, I crossed over. It broke every rule I had been given, but it was worth every second. Then, reality came to collect its debt. During another crossing, the line snapped. I fell into the gorge, the place I had been warned never to enter. I survived the fall, barely. Injured and disoriented, I started moving through the fog that covered the canyon floor. At first, I thought the strange sounds I heard were animals. Then I realized they were something much worse. Before I could fully understand what was happening, she appeared out of the darkness. She had come down after me. She didn't have to. Nothing in her orders required it, but she came anyway. Together, we discovered what was living in the gorge. We called them the Hollow Men. The name came from the first soldier ever assigned to the tower network, a man named Bradford Shaw, whose final notes were carved into the walls of an abandoned bunker. As we fought our way through tunnels and ruins, we uncovered the truth. During World War II, a secret biochemical weapons project had operated in the canyon. An earthquake in 1946 released an experimental toxin into the environment. The fog that formed from it altered life itself, merging human DNA with animals and plants. The scientists and soldiers stationed there never escaped. They transformed into the creatures now hunting us. For 80 years, the secret had been buried. Nations worked together to keep it hidden. Presidents and prime ministers came and went without ever learning the truth. The canyon existed outside normal history. That was what I had spent a year protecting. Then we discovered something even worse. Modern research equipment, corporate technology, genetic collection systems. A private defense company called Darklake had been harvesting DNA from the Hollow Men, trying to create the ultimate soldier. We weren't protecting the world from the canyon. We were protecting their research project. And now that we knew the truth, we had become a problem. We escaped the gorge and entered quarantine. 5 days. That's how long it takes contamination to show itself. If the fog had infected us, mutations would begin within that time. We spent those days alone in our separate towers once again. It was the hardest part of everything, not because I was afraid for myself, but because I didn't know if she was okay. Somewhere along the way, she had become the reason I cared about surviving. On the 6th day, we were both clear. No contamination, no mutations, just a choice. She wanted us to disappear together. She knew a place in France where we could start over. I wanted to say yes, more than anything, but I couldn't stop thinking about the next soldiers who would be sent here with no idea what waited below. I couldn't stop thinking about what would happen if the Hollow Men ever escaped. For the first time in my life, I decided I wasn't going to follow someone else's mission. I was going to choose my own. I sabotaged the cloakers and exposed the canyon to the world. For 80 years it had been invisible. I made sure it could never be hidden again. Before I left, I wrote a final message on the wall. 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Then I walked away. Eventually, I found her in France. I was late, bruised, and moving slower than I wanted to, but I got there. She was working behind the counter of a small kitchen. She looked at me like someone she had finally given up waiting for, but never stopped hoping to see. She asked if I had any special skills. I told her I was a pretty good shot. She asked how good. I told her my last confirmed shot was 3,900 meters. Had to beat my record. Had to get back to you. They recruited me because I was a man with nothing to live for. No attachments, nobody waiting, nothing worth coming home to. What they never expected was what happens when a man like that finally finds something real. A soldier with nothing to lose will go anywhere and do anything because it costs him nothing. But a soldier who has found his reason, there is nothing on this earth that will stop him from coming home.